Hello from the Hashknife. Today I'm going to take you on a little bit different ride with me. Unfortunately, today I have to be a politician. I'll try not to lie to you, but this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a little bit of a asset we had, and it got transposed into something that none of us want to deal with. That stuff, which was fresh hay, and you can see it, some of it laying around the ground here, but it was transposed into that big pile throughout the winter and basically the last year, fall and winter. I'm going to use that shovel and put that pile into that bucket and take it way out there into that feed ground and spread it around. So just like any good politician, and it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, it's all BS. So we're gonna get rid of it and hopefully make it so it'll actually be usable. So stick with me. So let's take a closer look at our bucket. It's this is an older John Deere, and it's all mechanical. There's no shaft to hook onto a tractor. You just set it onto a pin on whatever thing that you want to use to pull. In this case, it's just a 1-ton diesel pickup because I want to pull in a little bit of comfort today. So you load up this big old bucket here, and it's really not very big by standards of manure spreaders. It's fairly small, but you've got a chain driven by wheels. And this chain here will drop down onto that sprocket. As the wheel turns, it turns, of course, got a idler sprocket there, and it turns this reel and also turns a bottom reel, and then that is connected to this kind of auger on this side from that reel to there, and this just spins it out backwards, comes this way, and this spreads it both that direction as it comes out. And how does it feed that reel? Well, this chain here on either side has these slats and just pieces of angle iron really that's just welded to it and bolted to the chain. And here are our controls. So this one engages all of the reels in the back, and that just fully engaged it. This one has several different settings that will give you the speed of this little conveyor belt that comes back, and it runs a little bit off of this lobe here. As that wheel turns, it hits this gearbox, and spins and turns this intermittently. It's not doing it all at the same time or continually. It's only as this wheel turns and comes around, so it's not feeding too fast. But then that's also adjusted by your linkage here, how far that's going to come down and how much closer it is to this big lobe right here. So the further away it is, it doesn't hit it for as long, and you can see how it scrapes and comes into contact with that lobe down there. If it's a lot further away, then it just hits it a little bit. So kind of ingenious, driven off the wheels, and these are pretty good shape, but they're old spoked wheels. I don't know how old this thing is. For sure, I could look it up. It's old. That's probably older than I am, and that's all dang near the invention of dirt. I'm approaching that way. So we'll get a shot of once we've got it loaded and take it out and do a little bit of spreading. Show you how that goes and then what comes after that. Well, this is what the inside of this big shovel looks like. There's a lot of electronics in here. It's not complicated, but you got all kinds of levers and switches and indication of what's going on, and throttles, brakes, and then your joystick for operating the bucket, and then the forward and reverse here. So we'll start her up, just a normal key, and then gives you an indication when your glow plugs are done being preheated, because it is a diesel. There we go. Make sure any alarms clear, if there are any. Alright. So far so good. So this has got 4 reverse gears. Actually, it's got 16 reverse gears. It's got 4 gears, A, B, C, and D, and a park, a neutral. And then each one of these, you can go right into that, has another gear. And you can do that. They give you a cute little bunny and a turtle, so that you're knowing whether you're going slower or faster. And if I push on the bunny, you can see the 1 in the display, first gear. Push the bunny, there's second gear, third gear, and fourth gear. And you can hear the engine respond to that, and we're not even moving yet. So you've got 16 forward gears and 4 reverse, well, 16 reverse gears as well. I keep wanting to say 4 because of a different type of shift mechanism on another tractor. So I'm going to put this in B. It's A is the slowest and D is like a road gear. And I have placed this into our, it's not 4-wheel drive per se, it's front wheel assist is what they call it. And I don't know what that's about, whether that's a branding or what it is, but here's my joystick. You can see that. I push forward, it goes down, comes up, then I can tilt my bucket or tilt it down, and then this little toggle moves my grapple fork in and out of the way, and I don't need it for this, so I'm gonna set my bucket to about where it needs to be, and I can kind of look on the ground there, kind of set straight. I don't have to be super far down, I can pick it up a little bit. And now gotta say go, lift the clutch gently, and we are headed for a pile of politics. Here we go. And as I come into this, I'm going to turn my bucket a little bit, lift it, so I catch as much as I can. And this is kind of nice because this is somewhat dry. You can see a little steam coming off of that. Well, that's not necessarily steam, because it's about 40 degrees, but that shows you some of the byproducts of decomposition in the form of heat. And you can actually have a manure pile or too green of a hay pile, if it's hay's been put up incorrectly, have too much moisture in it, and it will decompose and it can start on fire. And you'll see some of these cows out here sometimes, they will, and I'm tipping this bucket down, just trying to drop it in here gently. You can see some of these cows will lay very close to this pile of manure when it's very cold, so there's some heat coming off of it, and they're trying to utilize that to stay warm a little bit. And I'm trying to be very gentle here, and this is kind of a pain because there's no sense in, I should put it in reverse, there's no sense in just spilling that out over on the other side. That happens anyway. So I'm going to grab another bucket full here. Go forward. And this is actually, I'm trying to do all of this one-handed for you. It's a little bit on the, it's not complicated, but it is with got one hand, because you're using both of them at the same time doing different things. So there we go. Shows you what we can pick up. A little more. And this is actually a little slower than normal because of the one-handedness here. And I'm gonna pick my bucket up a little bit. I can usually do this in about 2 bucket loads. I can fill this, which is not a lot, and you can get a bigger, much larger manure spreaders. This is an old one. It's an old gear driven job. Drives off the wheels. Archimedes would be pretty proud of this, and Da Vinci might have invented it, I don't know. But it's kind of it's a neat little marvel in ingenuity, using chain and sprockets, all kinds of mechanical advantage to get that to roll out. And then these times I'll show you how it works as we're going along. And once again, this is slow and steady because I'm one-handed, but we'll do this anyhow. Now I'm going to try to get over on this side and load the corner of this bucket a little bit more than the other side. That way I can even my load in my manure spreader. And it certainly wouldn't be worth it for us to get a larger manure spreader because, you know, I spend a couple of days a year doing this, and the same thing with the harrow. And the harrow is just a piece of equipment that we drag on the ground behind a tractor, and it kind of just stirs up the ground. It'll spread out some of those manure deposits out there in the pasture as well from the feed ground, and just spread them around so it can break down much easier. And the harrow is kind of small, the manure spreader is small. It's all small because, you know, it isn't like we're running a feedlot here and having to do this a lot, so it would not be very economical for us to get something very large and spend a lot of money on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set my bucket flat and then just kind of make a gentle push down just to kind of pack that a little bit so that it rides well when we go out. Now we'll switch vehicles and go out and spread it. What we're looking at is a part of the pasture that we did not feed on this winter. And as you can see, it's relatively undisturbed. Grass is eaten down, of course, from last fall, but we got new grass coming in. And this line right here is where I've started to disperse some of the manure from the corral, but I've done it right over the top of some of the lighter areas where we fed. And we roll the bales out in a long line and basically pick an area of the pasture that we're going to feed on throughout the winter. And then the cows will obviously collect on there, eat, and you can see some of the areas up there in the distance that are a little heavier with the manure, where we may have had a pile of hay set or more dropped off on a bale than we expected. Those sort of things happen, and then the cows will congregate there, and of course they're going to poop right where they eat, because there's nothing clean about a cow. Honestly, they're not as clean as a hog is. Hogs are actually a very clean animal if allowed to be. Whole different discussion. But so I'm laying these areas out and kind of dispersing them with some area between for the scatter, and then I'll go over this with a harrow, and we'll cover that towards the end of the video and show you what I mean by breaking up all of the, I guess we could say, indigenous cow pies that were deposited this last winter, throughout the winter as they fed. And you can see this area of a little heavier concentration of cow poop. So I've tried to avoid that a little bit, because there's no sense in putting some on right on top of a hairy or a heavier concentrated area. And so you can see earlier we've gotten about 15 loads out of this corral, and we'll see what we end up with totally. But here's the benefit of this is in the distance, you can see over the last 3 years we have fed to the east of us there and the rest of that pasture, and it's done very nicely with providing a little bit of fertilizer and working the ground a little bit. And this is some native grass as well as some improved grass, or some crested wheat grass, which is a really good grass for grazing and actually for hay, but we just graze this here now. So we rotate this, and in about every 5 years, then we'll go over the top of the spot we went previously. So we've got about a 5-year rotation or so on this that really helps kind of renew and keep the ground fertilized. The danger is it gets a lot of heavy traffic, so you got to be very careful about that. And that's where the harrowing comes in, to disturb the ground, kind of break up some of the clumps so it has some rhizomatous growth to the plants, and disperses and creates even a better mat of feed. Well, it's time to set our levers and engage them both. And this is kind of old, so it doesn't want to hold as well. So as you can see, I've improvised a little bit with some bungee cords to hold them so that they don't come up, otherwise they will jump. And that's just some wrenching ingenuity there. A couple bucks a piece for a couple of tarp straps, and you're good to go. All right, let's see what we can do and how far we can spread some politics. Yeah, we'll take off slowly. I've got this pickup geared down a little bit because you can see already starting to throw some manure around, and a little shaky because with this wheel-driven chain, it really does jerk and bang you a little bit around, especially that lobe on that one. You feel the engagement of it, so you can't go too fast, but also the faster you go, the more you spread, and there's kind of a happy medium in there. It's dispersing just fine, but at the same time, we don't want to tear anything up by going too fast. Too slow, you won't get it spread out as much. And you can see our favorite cow there in the back, everybody's favorite, is Ears. She had to come over to see if there was anything to eat, of course. That's just the way she is. But look at that. And you can kind of hear things shaking. I have to slow it down just a little bit. I'm only doing probably about 4 or 5 miles an hour. So this can make for a long day, or we might work into the second day. And you know you're empty when that thing really slows down, and you'll get a little bit of leftover in the back of that, the bottom, but not much. So I stack it up there pretty high. And when that happens, when you quit throwing it, you know you can stop and put your levers back and head in for another load.
I did my makeup this morning.
All right. Well, the ranch boss is going to have the comfort of a tractor and a cab, and she's going to be dragging this harrow. As you can see, we spread out all of the manure, and you see the lines there. And so now it's a matter of she's going to be breaking up all of these clods and stuff that are there from feeding this winter, and then spread the manure from the corrals. And then she just watches this thing, and look how it busts that up and helps fertilize the ground, stimulates some of these plants to grow by moving the root balls a little bit, tearing through them some. That all helps do that. So she's going to spend probably the rest of the day doing just this while I go and do some other things with Braden, and then she can tell us how hard she worked afterwards.
I'm spent.
Already?
Yeah. Here we are, harrowing the field, trying to get all the clumps of poo and manure and hay and everything else that's built up. Break that stuff up. Got my 2 sidekicks. So far, so good. Okay, still at it. My rows are not very straight. However, I got quite a bit done so far.
All right, you guys, we hope you like this series, and I'm sure we'll discuss a little bit later.
Yeah, these aren't straight lines.
As long as they cover each other.